Joining me on the playoff preview podcast, it's the numbers man himself. Got this on to stake.com where we can actually bet on the outcome of the ISL. Absolutely incredible. So much fun. I'm going to lose so much money. My house is already being double mortgaged and I'm getting the money
Hey,
sent.
there we go. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I know I'm going to win. I feel like I can't go wrong here, and so we're going to look at the individual slots and break them down and kind of what their odds are on the market and how we think they're going to break down. And first up is going to be the slot with the longest odds by far. It's a Sweet Rush Megaways. They had a 9-8 record over the season. They had a +2 net rating, which is 12th best in the playoff field. Their high X was 10.76, which was third best in the playoff field, but their median X is 0.49. And that's actually 13th best in the field. The only slot worse is Space Wars. They are the 7 seed in the ISC. So, like I said, at $41, their first matchup is going to be Hip Hop Hop, where they will be a heavy underdog. I don't think Sweet Rush is a good place to put an underdog bet. They have a solid almost 40% of their buys end up under 0.3. And I think that number is just way too big in a playoff field. It's going to be so consistent. Like I said, I think this slot is one that is a very sort of lucky to be their slot. They won a race against a lot of other mediocre slots. But do you think maybe there's any value in Sweet Rush at $41?
I mean, look, Sweet Rush is kind of the Tampa Bay of the NFL for this season. There had to be a 14th team in, and this was the one. The 9-8 record in the other conference, the ASC, it wouldn't have come close. So it wouldn't have come close to a playoff position. I think 10-5 was a cutoff, and then 11-4 was, or sorry, 10-6, and then 11-5 was the next level of wildcard ones, whereas there were 3 9-8 slots trying to squeeze in. But yeah, look, Sweet Rush is definitely, if you're looking for outsiders, I don't think that's the one. I think there are some value in outsiders actually, which we'll cover soon. But this is just not the one. And not only is it not the one, its path to winning is virtually going to be impossible, because let's say in a crazy world where they beat Hip Hop Hop, they then have to play the number 1 seed Sloth Tumble. And if they win that, it's very likely they're going to have to play Crystal Digger or Hammer or Vulcan. And if they win that, then they're going to have to play the winner of the ASC, whether it's Grand Heist, Space Wars, Mental, Rich Raptors, whoever it is. So this path is just, in fact, if anything, $41 might even be a little light. It's going to go down as a heavy underdog in all 3 rounds, and that's before it reaches the championship match. So this would be an unbelievable story. I mean, even if it won a round, if you want the honest truth. So yeah, I mean, it is $41 though. It is $41, so it's clearly the biggest odds available on stake. And let's be honest, as you said, sort of rightly so.
Yeah, that's like I said, I think it's the one that you don't really give much of a shot at all. The 6th seed in the ISC has a particularly tough matchup ahead of it, I guess, right away. Hammer Vulcan, who I think is a favorite, but the 6th seed is Wild Coyote Megaways, and they're at $21. I think that between Wild Coyote, and we'll talk about them later with Bloodsuckers that also at $21, I probably favor Wild Coyote. Their median is a 0.56, which is tied for 10th, which is kind of right in the middle. Their high X is 7.55, which is 5th best in the playoff field. But their net rating is last. So I don't know if that bodes particularly poorly for it, but it does have some big wins. It beat Sloth Tumble. It beat Gates of Olympus. It beat Bloodsuckers. It lost to those slots. It beat Sweet Bonanza. And that's really actually the only slot in Sweet Rush Megaways. So I don't know, at $21, like I said, between the Wild Coyote and Bloodsuckers, I probably favor Bloodsuckers a little bit. But I don't know. Wild Coyote, what do you think? Is this maybe one of your value picks?
Well, you've got 5 best of 5, then best of 7, best of 7, best of 9 for people wondering how the playoff structure will be. So yeah, the first round will be best of 5. The second and third round will be best of 7. So the first team to win 4 games in the championship game will be best of 9. So when we look at Wild Coyote, although I mean on face value, I feel like I prefer Coyote over Bloodsuckers. The problem is that this Coyote game just rips in a lot of poor numbers. In fact, looking at the graphic now, as you can probably see on the screen, 24% of Wild Coyote's buys fall under 0.19. And that's going to be brutal in best of series as you progress through the playoffs. And just a very, very quick glance at their wins in the second half of the season, or even in general. Bonanza Billion, Super Mega Monsters, Sweet Bonanza was a nice win. And then Dragonfall, Cabin Crashers, Royal Potato. And then if you look at, say, their last 5 losses, Hoarders, who just missed the playoff, Bloodsuckers are in the playoffs, Gates of Olympus in the playoffs, Rise of Atlantis wasn't, and Sloth Tumble, number 1 seed in the playoffs. So just glancing over that very face value is beats nobodies. Beats nobodies, loses against quality. It's going to be the format's going to make it awfully hard for Wild Coyote to make any impression, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, they actually have a low or a higher percentage, or the second highest percentage of their games under 0.19, right behind Sweet Rush. And I think, like I said, when you've got slots like Crystal's Digger and Space Wars, and Grand Heist that are just going to be slamming, even Mental with its guarantee, that just are never going to get below those numbers. If you're up over 20 to 30%, you've got no shot in a format like this to win it all. In my personal
Yeah, it's
opinion,
going to be
that's
hard.
it's a dead money. But hey, who knows? Put a dollar on and see the Coyote go crazy. Next up is, interestingly enough, the 5 seed, and this is where there's a big value pick in the ISC because Crystal's Digger ended up as the 5 seed. So they are at $5.50. They start off, they'll be a favorite against the 4 seed Gates of Olympus, a pretty heavy favorite. They have the top net rating at +20 in the playoffs. They have the 4th best high score at 8.23, and they have the tied for 3rd best median at 0.69. I think, as we know, Crystal's Digger, 0% of their games under 0.4. And that makes them very, very tough, especially as we get further. If they don't get knocked out by Gates of Olympus, I think they become a heavy favorite to win the whole thing just because of the way the format's set up. And at 550, that might be where I throw a little bit of money. What do you think? How much you got on Crystals here?
Yeah, Crystal Digger 550s, just in the stats alone are looking pretty good. Again, they've got that tricky. I know I feel like when we look at the playoff bracket, the ISC, which was a weaker bracket in totality, is actually one of the harder brackets, sort of at the top end. So what I mean by that is you've got Wild Coyote, Sweet Rush. You would question on Gates of Olympus. But at the top end, you've got some pretty decently consistent games: Sloth Tumble, Hip Hop Hop, Hammer of Vulcan, all games where if they lost to those games, you're not going to be shocked. Whereas if you look at the ASC, even though the records have been very, very impressive, Bloodsuckers, Boom Boom Gold, Mental, stuff like this, I don't know. I think they're lucky and unlucky, but yeah, their path's going to be. I mean, we're just going to take for granted that Hip Hop Hop beats Sweet Rush. So let's say Hip Hop Pop beats Sweet Rush, Hammer of Vulcan versus Wild Coyote, and Crystal Digger's going to have to beat Gates of Olympus. So let's say Hammer of Vulcan does its job and takes care of business against Wild Coyote. Then what do we have there? We've got Crystal Digger up against Sloth Tumble. So because it's the 5 seed, it's going to have to be that'll be the lowest seed winning. It will go up against Sloth Tumble. Then it will take out the winner of Hip Hop and Hammer. But yeah, from a 5 seed perspective, absolutely the best value in the event. I mean, it is the 3rd favorite to win the whole lot. Only two teams ahead of it: Sloth Tumble and Grand Heist. And as you know, the only reason they're ahead is because they got buys in round 1. There's one less game for them to win the whole event. If this was where they were all playing week 1, I'm pretty sure Crystal Digger would have been the favorite. So consistency goes a long way, and there's not a game more consistent in the event, in my opinion, with a better bottom than Crystal Digger. So they are going to be a huge player.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, like you said, that top end of that ISC is juicy. I think Hip Hop Pop, Hammer of Vulcan, Crystals Digger, and Sloth Tumble, any 4 of those slots could win. And that gets really fun. And I think that's where some of the value comes in. Crystals Digger, I think
Yeah,
it'll be a heavily bet slot at 550. Just my personal
yeah.
opinion. Number 4 is actually the 4 seed in the ISC. Like we talked about, Gates of Olympus. They're at $16 though, and that just goes to speak of the path that they have to get there, which is going through Gates of Olympus, or which is going through Crystal's Digger to start with. They have a +9 net rating, a 6.34 high score, a 0.54 median X. But if you look at even like we had just talked about, so 0% of games under 0.4 for Crystal's Digger. If you look at that number for Gates of Olympus, you're looking at 30, almost 44% of their games are under that 0.4.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
even in a best of five, they need to get really lucky, and then that's going to be even tougher as things go on. And so seeing how volatile Gates is, it just, I don't know. What do you think?
Exactly. When you look at it from that, I look, we had the markets framed, and the Gates of Olympus actually came out much bigger odds than it is, and I actually tweaked it a little bit just on gut feeling. But when you break it down like that, it is a little bit scary because yeah, like you said, what's that, 40%, 45% under Crystal Digger. So they're battling in week one. So what they're saying is if that game goes to 5 games, automatically because of the bonus guarantee on Crystal Digger, they're going to win 2 games, like just straight away by the bonus guarantee. So therefore, Gates of Olympus would have to drop in 3 impressive efforts out of 5 games to win that in 5. That's going to be hard. I don't know why I feel like it can make a run. Gates of Olympus format doesn't exactly suit the game. I know it can go on runs occasionally. But yeah, look, $16. If you like yourself a bit of Gates and you like yourself some big odds and don't really care about stats too much, there's your game. $16 to take it all out.
Well, and here's the thing: if Gates can pull the upset round one, obviously just mathematically it has the best chance because it's only a best of five against Crystal's Digger, and so that sort of bonus guarantee plays the least effect. You can hit. You don't have to get those 40%. It doesn't have to be true in a best of five, and so if Gates
Yep.
can pull off that upset, it opens the ISC wide open though, and then all of a sudden you're looking at Gates could win. Gates could beat Sloth Tumble,
Yep.
which is a little bit more volatile. Could beat Hammer Vulcan and Hip Hop Pop, which are a little bit more volatile. So that $16, if it can get out of round one, is all of a sudden a very, very live bet. So I think there's some value there, just from that perspective.
Yep.
The next up is Hammer Vulcan. My personal, I've shifted from Hip Hop Pop to Hammer Vulcan. With the numbers being what they are, I think Hammer Vulcan is kind of the outsider favorite to win it outside those top three that we talk about: Grand Heist, Sloth Tumble, and Crystals. It's priced that way. It is the fourth best favorite at 650, but it has the sixth best net rating, the sixth high score, and the second highest median at 12 plus 12 net rating, a 0.71 median. And just looking at their sort of graph, they have the highest number of buys between 1 and 1.24. And that beats a lot of the other consistent slots. They're usually coming down in that 0.6, 0.7 range. And I
Yep.
think that might be key. And so that's something that I looked at that kind of tips me toward Hammer of Vulcan at a value at 650. But I don't know. What do you think? I love the game personally, just kind of watching it in this format.
It's been pretty solid. It's been pretty solid. Looking at the stats now, that poorly looking at it, 0.8 to 1.24 range. You've got 6, 12, 19, 40%. 40% of your buys dropping that zero point 0.7 to 1.24 range, and that's very powerful. They finished the season just red hot form, just red hot form. They beat Grand Heist 3-0, who is the favorite to win it all. They beat Crystal Digger 3-1, who we just spoke about. They dispatched the Big Bamboo and Sheep Gone Wild, and then the Hip Hop Pop, who was the number 2 seed in the IC, they dispatched. So they've beaten the 2 seed in the IC, 5 seed in the IC. Who else have they beaten? They beat the 1 seed in the ASC. So form wise, you just can't go wrong. 650, something rubs me a little bit wrong with their price, but all the stats point to them being a legitimate player. And yeah, I think it's going to be a situation of do you love Hammer of Vulcan? Do you not love it? And if you do love Hammer of Vulcan, you're going to love hearing these stats about how big a shot it is. And 650, not bad.
This is one of those games that the ISL generally genuinely kind of turned me on to and made me a fan of. I like watching it. I like pulling for it. It kind of has a little bit. It's a very simple game, but it pays really well, and it's one of those games that I had no idea existed before this event, and that I like to watch now. And there's quite a few of them like that. So at the very least, and now I get to bet on it. So that's kind of a dream come true. It's really
Yep,
fun.
there you go.
Next up is Hip Hop Pop, which is the 2 seed. They are at $9 at a 2 seed. That is value alert for those of you value hunters out there. I think this is a good one. They have the 5th best net rating at plus 13, the very best high score of the playoff teams remaining at 23.13, and the 6th best median X at 0.64. So very, very good numbers for Hip Hop Pop. Their graph and their kind of heat map looks pretty good. I don't like the 0.2 to 0.29, and we've seen quite a bit of that lately. But they also have some of the best high end of any of the slots here, obviously, as you can see. And they've got an impressive resume. So I think as a number 2 seed at $9, there's certainly going to be some of my money getting put on Hip Hop Pop, and I think probably quite a bit elsewhere. What do you think in terms of where that fits with the rest of everything else that we see so far?
Yeah, well, face value, if we just said hip hop pop, $9, no stats, no nothing, people will go, oh shit, that's good odds. And I mean, overall, it is good odds. They are the number 2 seed, so their path to the championship is laid out for them. They won't have to meet Sloth Tumble at any stage. And because they are the 2 seed, it also means that I was going to say they wouldn't have to meet Crystal Digger, but that's not true. Wild Coyote upsetting Hammer or Vulcan would mean they would meet Crystal Digger in that scenario. But regardless, looking at the median X breakdown, a little bit concerning where you see the middle here. And going through the results, everything just looks so good on paper. Highest X, top 5 or 6 in net rating, median X. They're the number 2 seed. But then you sort of break down who they've played against, and they've only played against 5 playoff teams. So 5 playoff teams this season out of 17 games. So it kind of reminds me a little bit, if we're going to continue with NFL, I guess, parallels, or I can't think of the word I'm looking for, they kind of remind you a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys. They keep getting jobs done. Their stats are great. Everything looks fantastic. But they're sort of just beating up on a lot of the small teams. Now, look, they've beaten Crystal Digger. They've beaten Sloth Tumble. Their losses against good quality teams or against Boom Boom Gold, which was 1-3 loss, and they got swept by Grand Heist. They took care of Sweet Rush very convincingly in the last week. But it's more so the fact that they haven't been genuinely tested. And this format is going to test Hip Hop Pop best of 5, best of 7, best of 7, best of 9. And the 35 orders at, wow, we've got 1932. It's nearly 45% of the buys under half a buy value. That may be tricky against the big guns. That's all I'm saying. It can get away with that against some of the easier slots, but against the big boys, that is going to be hard to overcome. So you are getting a price to overcome it though, $9, about a 2 seed. But I'm a little bit wary personally of how deep I think Hip Hop Pop can go here, even though it is a huge fan favorite amongst a lot of people.
I think you're underselling those wins. The win against Crystal Digger is a 3-1, and that's the second, third best favorite. Win against Sloth Tumble, number 2 favorite in the entire league, and they swept them. And then they beat Crystal Diggers again. So if you talk about the second and third highest or lowest odds to win, and Hip Hop Pop has a 9-1 record this season against Crystal Digger and Sloth Tumble combined. I think that speaks to what they can do. I think that $9 is probably personally the best value on the board. It will be getting the
There you go,
most
boys.
amount of my money. So mark it
We've
down.
both
I just
spoken.
think you can't speak. Yeah, 9-1 against the 2 slots that we're going to talk about as heavy favorites to win the whole thing. I
Yep.
mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Fair point.
That's
Fair point.
I hope
And
those
speaking
slots
of
aren't due, I
which,
guess. And here we go. Yep, exactly. Up next, the
speaking of
number
which, we
1
got the
seed.
sloth now.
Yep, the number 1 seed in the ISC at $5. So they are the second sort of favorites, right behind Grand Heist. And rightfully so, they have one less matchup. So even all of these slots in the playoffs, even your Sweet Rushes, have decent chances to win against any other slot in this format in a best of 5 series. And what Sloth Tumble and Grand Heist do is they avoid that. They go straight to best of 7, where they're the tied for third median of all the playoff slots comes more into play. And that high X of 3.99, which is one of the worst, doesn't hurt it as much. And I think Sloth Tumble becomes a very, very heavy favorite to win it. I think their second round matchup is likely going to be against Crystal's Digger, though, which will be interesting. It's one of those again that it's probably what I think is the last best shot to beat Crystal's Digger. Once we get into 7, I don't know if there's anyone that can do it, and so Sloth Tumble will have that chance and will leave things open. Do you think they have enough to win it all? Do you think they have enough to win that potential round 2 matchup against Crystal's Digger?
Look, I've liked Sloth Tumble since the start, to be honest. Start of the season, I've liked the game. I like sort of the format. It does have a very sort of even spread of results. Again, though, when you look at this graph, this median X graph, A big chunk under half X the buy, which is a little bit concerning. Somewhere in the 35% range, not as high as a couple of others we just spoke about. But then they do have a nice spread across all different results ranges, which is good. Because, for instance, let's say you get a Crystal Digger matchup and it lobs in literally the bonus guarantee and it gets about a half an X or a 0.53, then obviously, even if Sloth Tumble slots in a 0.7 or a 0.6 or a 0.8, they're sort of not wasting, if you will, one of their top end results, which they may need. But look, I just think overall, just from a gut instinct sort of thing, I think this is one of the ones to beat. I'm just concerned that its path, I believe, with that Crystal Digger and then maybe Hammer or Vulcan is a bit trickier than perhaps reaching a game like Mental, Sloth Tumble, Bloodsuckers, etc., where I imagine Sloth Tumble would probably go around a favorite. But look, consistent all year. Second best net rating, third best median. You can't really go wrong with those stats. And you're the number one seed. You only have to win 2 matches and you get to the big best of 9 championship final. Yeah, look, it's a big player. Big player.
So the big number for Sloth Tumble is 41.7% of their games go over 1x. So they have
Yep.
that big 8, 7, 7, 5.6, 5.6, 4.2, 4.2. Those are big numbers that get that, like you said, they can hit home runs and they can hit them over and over and over. 40% that can hit 8, 9 times in a row, and all of a sudden you've just wiped out the entire playoff field. And it's not that kind of obscene of a thing to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, that's easy. That's it for the ASC, or no, that's it for the ISC. Over to the ASC now. And it is giving us, yeah, perfect. So the first slot up in the ASC is Bloodsuckers Megaweight, and like we mentioned, it's at $21, similar to or the exact same as Wild Coyote over in the ISC. 11-6, eighth best net rating, ninth best high X, and ninth best median. Just average slot, very middle of the pack. You can see on their heat map, though, they do skew very low. A lot of 0.5, 0.6, 0.7s, but not enough high end, I think, to compete. They're obviously going to start out in round one with a tough matchup. Who do they have round one? Who's the 2 seed over?
In round one, they've
Oh,
I had it
Space
right up the
Wars. Ooh,
screen.
yeah, that's right. It's
Yes,
Space
Space
Wars.
Wars.
So that's a tough matchup for
Heavy.
them. They did beat them 3-1 in the second to last week of the season. So, but at $21, like I said, they beat Space Wars, and all of a sudden they're live. They'd have a grand heist after that, and that makes their sort of path really tough. Do you think that there's a better value here or any value here on a $21
I
bloodsucker?
mean, the format doesn't overly suit them because, like I said, they're a middling team, like across the range. So, in a one and done scenario, they could be very dangerous. In a playoff format, which gets harder and harder and harder, and more games and more games and more games, they become more and more vulnerable. Um, but I mean, they did have the win over Space Wars. Again, they've been sort of I wouldn't say blessed with an easier bracket, but I mean, they're only 3 losses in their first 11 games. 2 were against, sorry, 3 were against playoff teams. 3 weren't. I guess 3 and 3 is not awful. But then they finished with Cabin Crashers, Dragonfall. The Space Wars win was good. Space Wars sort of fell on its face in that matchup, and then they lost to Kodiak Kingdom. Look, this rematch up against Space Wars. I mean, if they can beat Space Wars 3-1 in the regular season, they can beat them 3-1 in the postseason. Now, whether I think that's going to happen is going to be a different matter. We're more specifically talking about overall markets here because that's the only betting option that we have. However, boys, I have heard word that if this futures market gets a bit of traction, we've got word that we can introduce head-to-head betting next season. Just a quick little branch off these playoff talks for a second. So that would be pretty insane if we have season 2 where you can literally bet on the individual matchups every week. So there's 16 matchups a week and the playoffs. That'd be crazy. In a format like that, Bloodsuckers is going to probably be value most weeks. But yeah, look, without rambling too much more than I already have, I just don't see a path for I don't see a path for Bloodsuckers to win because they're going to have to beat Space Wars. That means because they're the 7 seed, they're going to go and visit Grand Heist, and I have no idea what the matchup odds would be there, but I would imagine Grand Heist would be around $1.15. to beat Bloodsuckers in a best of 7, and then you're going to have to fight whoever. Rich Raptors, Sweet Bonanza, Mental, Boom Boom Gold in the. That's just the ASC conference finals, and then you're going to have to beat the Crystal Digger slots. It's just very hard. It's very hard to see Bloodsuckers running the card here, even
It
at
is.
21.
I agree completely. But like you said, it's interesting. The ASC, despite being sort of a tougher conference, it feels weaker at the top. It feels like anyone could win the ASC, and it feels like that's not true. It feels like there's probably only 4 slots that could realistically win in the ISC, and probably even 2 heavy favorites. Whereas the ASC, man, is wide open, and that leads me to my next, which is Mental, the
Well,
number
what?
6 seed. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, wide open. I think Grand Heist. Now that I think about it a lot more and more, it's got a stranglehold as the dominating favorite now. Looking at this range of games, even though you do have to take the playoffs one game at a time. But if you take out Grand Heist, yeah, I think it's absolutely open.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So yeah, Mental, like I was saying, is the 6 seed there at $13. They've got that bonus guarantee, which is going to be really nice. They don't have any buys under 0.19, so that they're under 0.2, so that's good. That got them +1 net rating, 14th best in the league, second highest sort of high score with 11.3, 8th best median, so sort of in the middle there. They're going to start off with Sweet Bonanza, which is a rematch of the match that they swept in week 17. And then from there, if they win that, they will likely be facing off against either Boom Boom Gold or Rich Raptors the week after that. So I think Mental is one of those games that, again, at $13, could they make a run? Probably. Do they have too many 0.3s and 0.2s and 0.4s for my liking? Yes, especially at $13. I think there's other slots over on the ISC side that are better value there. But what do you think? Do you think maybe Mental has some value that we haven't seen so far?
I favor a lot of other games over Mental in this format. The bonus guarantee is nice, but that's not going to really come into play later on in the season. It might come into play earlier in the season. For instance, let's say we like a Rich Raptors, for instance, 20% of Rich Raptors games under 0.3, which would mean that out of every 10 games Rich Raptors plays Mental gets 2 free wins for the bonus guarantee. So in a best of 7, they're going to get a free win or something. So that bonus guarantee miss should not be underrated, because against most slots, you're getting a free win every round at least. But top end, they're going to be struggling. So that those mid-range results from Mental, they're going to have to basically match up with some of the other slots failing, if that makes sense, as opposed to going toe and toe at some bigger returns and just outdueling them. They're just going to have to be situationally a little bit too lucky for my liking. Their record's great. A lot of the stats are respectable. The big issue here is that their net rating of +1, meaning how many games did they win this season, how many did they lose this season, which again talks about matchups more than stats. They're the worst, tied for the worst in the playoffs. They only won 1 more game than they lost, which is very surprising. So that's concerning, considering best of 5, 7, 7, and 9. Again, a lot of these slots that we're concerned about, they're big odds. $13 to win it all. As a 6 seed in a very open conference, you might like yourself a bit of Mental at those prices.
All right, and that leads us up to the number 6 seed, which is Rich Raptors, one of the favorites over here, the second favorite behind Grand Heist. They're at 750. Probably, like I said, the second favorite to make it out of the ASC. They were System's early pick. They are tied for second in net rating, which bodes well in a series like this. They're 8th in the high X, and they're tied for 3rd in median. They're going to be starting things off in the first matchup again. Boom Boom Gold. So that will be, well, actually, they're the 5 seed, so they're against Boom Boom 4 seed. And I think Boom Boom Gold is actually a little bit overrated in the 4 seed. They got lucky to get in. So I think Rich Raptors is a really good value here. I think that at 750, they're a good pick. And if you're going to put money on the ASC and it's not Grand Heist, I think this is the first place to go. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I've always been a always been a Rich Raptors fan since we found the game, even with its limited ceiling. Although we did see a couple of late season decent wins from the game, which was nice to see. Yeah, I think it matches up well with Boom Boom Gold, and I think in terms of even spreads, I think it can match up. I think it can go toe to toe with pretty much any slot. Obviously, again, we can say this about every slot that's going to verse Crystal Digger at any stage with that bonus guarantee on Crystal Digger is going to get two or three or one or two free wins in a series. But once you take out that guarantee though for Crystal Digger, then it becomes about what happens if they don't survive the if Crystal Digger does not survive the sort of the post 40% scatter money that you get on the game. So yeah, look, stats all season really nice. Like you said, tied for second net rating, tied for third median X. The high X, although we're quoting that stat a little bit, not super relevant in my opinion. I think now we're in the playoffs. Net rating and median X rating are probably the more important stats, and it's tied for second and tied for third in both categories. And at the 6 seed, you can see why $7.50 for a 6 seed is pretty insane. So very highly rated Rich Raptors. So very happy to see it make the playoff. So it's definitely going to be a player. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's actually wrong. It's the 5 seed.
Is it 5 seed? Okay,
Yep,
apologies. Same sort of thing. Same sort of thing though. Not really a 1, 2, 3 seed. But yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, yeah, I think that's where my ASC money will go. I'm not a big bet on the favorite kind of guy. I like to kind of try and find those mill values, and I think that's where it is over here in the ASC. Now, next up is the 4 seed. It'll be Rich Raptors round 1 matchup. It's Boom Boom Gold. They're at $16, which is a stark difference from the 750 that we just saw, and that kind of speaks to Boom Boom Gold. They're 10-7. They have a plus 10 net rating, which is in the middle. They also have a 0.56 median, which is tied for 12th. The 4 seed. Now they have a very even spread in terms of how they do and where they land. So I think they can beat anyone in any given sort of matchup. But obviously they have a tough road to haul. Do you think Boom Boom has any value here? Maybe pull off a first round upset and go on a run.
Yeah, well, I mean, stats wise, it doesn't look beautiful, mostly because even though they have an even spread across, say, 0 to 1.25, 1.5, their top end is very light. So any time a slot doesn't have to necessarily blow up, by the way, but anytime a slot gets over 1.5x, they're nearly drawing dead. So what that means is, again, it's another situational matchup, not this one, just for the entire event, where it's going to have to be very lucky in key spots and just get a perfect matchup. And the net rating was plus 10, which is reasonable. I'm just having a quick peruse of their wins and losses. I mean, they've beaten some good names, they've lost to some good names, and they've also lost, by the way, to some bad names. So I mean, they lost to Retro Tapes and Choco Reels, that's pretty hard to do. In fact, that's insanely hard to do. In fact, I'll say that nobody else this season has done that. So yeah, like you said at the start there, can beat anybody, can lose to anybody. Not a massive fan personally in the playoff format. If you think they can win those $16 available to win the whole event.
Yeah, I just think there's too much. I mean, yeah, half of their games are under 0.6. That's just you're going to not compete with games like Hammer of Vulcan, for example, that has like 40-50% of their games over 1x. It's just going to be tough to beat long term. So Sweet Bonanza, one that I think will get quite a bit of play. They're the 3 seed. They're kind of like the Bills. They went from almost out of the playoffs all the way up into a nice high seed here in the very last week where they beat Mental 3-0. So they are at $10. Some of their statistics are interesting. They have a tied for 10th net rating, the 7th best median at 0.63, which is pretty good. They're matched up against Mental again, who they swept the last week of the season. I don't know really what to make of Sweet Bonanza. They have a really high 1 to 1.24. It's 12.7. That's some of the elite. It's weird because a lot of the ASC does really well, has over 10 or 12% in that 1 to 1.24 range. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see how they match up. But I worry against the slot like Mental, we see same 20 to 30% of the time they're under that 0.3. So who do you think, Sweet Bonanza, both round 1 and then moving forward at $10? I don't love it, but what do you think?
I mean, It's a 3 seed. Its stats actually line up if you want to break it down. Only barely better than Boom Boom Gold, but yet there's something in my mind that says Sweet Bonanza can play when realistically, we've seen pretty bad sets of runs from Sweet Bonanza in our life on this channel platform. So for it to have to win 3 games, 4 games, 4 games, and then 5 games in the championship to win, pretty tricky. Luckily, it's sort of in a conference where if you take out Grand Heist, it's sort of open slather season. Um, Look, I don't hate the game. I don't love the game. I think the market's somewhere where it needs to be. I think Grand Heist would make very light work of Sweet Bonanza, in my opinion. But in order for those to meet up in the next round, I think the number 2 seed would have to win. In fact, it can't. I don't believe. I don't think it can meet Grand Heist
Mm-mm.
in the first round, which it can't. Yeah, I've got. I'm trying to give you some feedback on it. I really don't have any. It's just one of those slots that on a day can be hot, but 4 in a row, well, it's going to be hard to see it happen. Going to be really hard.
Well, it's interesting because bring up the next slot, Space Wars. Space Wars is $12. I would buy Space Wars at $12 every single day and twice on Sunday over Sweet Bonanza at $10 in a format like this. I would take them straight up. Even numbers. I would take Space Wars probably, just because you look at they have the fourth best net rating. Their median X is 10th best, but their heat map and their stats show that they have 28% of their buys are in that 0.4, and that even beats the Crystal's Digger guarantee. So they're going to be one of the most consistent slots. They're going to give you nice sort of middling hits every single time. We've seen it all season. They kind of fell back to earth. They lost to Gates and they lost to Bloodsuckers, but they beat a lot of really good slots this season. And I think Space Wars, maybe not to win it all, but I think at $12 to win it all, I think that I'd put them as a better chance than Hip Hop Pop, for example, and Hip Hop Pop is at $9. So that's Space Wars. I think might be probably my sort of favorite quote unquote underdog or double digit slot of the market, and they'll definitely be seeing some of my money there. And I'll bet on all of them, so that way I can't possibly make money. So that'll be fun. But what do you think about
Yeah.
Space Wars?
Look, I think of all that. Now we're going to get some. I'm hoping, provided I can get some replies quick, we're going to get the markets, and who's been betting on what, so we can sort of update the viewers each day of where the money's coming for this event. Really not sure how much interest it's going to generate, if you want the truth. But I'm hoping it does generate something reasonable. Put it that way. I think this will be the most bet slot. I think it's got a aura around it, even though people don't love it and it's a slow game, a slow building game. The way it was just winning, winning, winning in the regular season, albeit it did finish very slowly, with some surprising losses. I think its aura is that it can put together wins, and that it doesn't rip a lot, which is technically true. Only 10 or 11% of its games go under 0.4. So that will pick you up free wins in a lot of situations. But I mean, statistically speaking, that's going to be hard work in a best of 7 and best of 9. That's why the odds are what they were. This was a best of 5 series through the championship and including the championship. I feel like this would be down near $7 or $8, but because this extends up to best of 7, best of 9, that's where we think this will falter. And $12 for the 2 seed, and for a slot which was 2 and 10. Sorry, 10 wins, 2 losses before the late season collapse, if you will. They went 2 and 3, by the way, in that collapse, to finish 12 and 5. There you go. $12 about a 2 seed. You don't often see that in any sport, any sporting event in the world, let alone something as illustrious as slot streaming. So yeah, $12 Space
Absolutely.
Wars, probably the
I love
most,
it.
probably the most bet slot, I reckon. If I could bet on the most bet slot, I reckon it's going to be Space Wars.
There we go. I like it. I like it. And then the favorite. Grand Heist slot number 14, last one, wrapping things up. Make sure you get over to stake.com and put your bets on before the ISL actually takes place. And then we're going to get ready for season 2 after that. But this is it. $4.50. Grand Heist feature buy. They've got the plus 12 net rating tied for 6th. They've got the tied for top median in the event. They've got a really good looking heat map. They don't sort of stink up the joint a lot. They do have almost 30% of their buys under point 0.4. It's something that what is this? 32.8% of their buys are under point 0.4, and that those were all lose to Crystal's Digger. So something where, like I said, if Crystal's Diggers gets far enough, I think they're just going to be unbeatable. But Grand Heist, other than that sort of little hiccup, they have all the makings of a really good slot, of being the favorite to win it all. They have to play one less matchup. Do you think they are the favorite? Do you think they've earned this title, and do you think they carry the mantle onto a championship?
Look, they deserve to be the favorite. They're the best median X in the event remaining. So just on that alone, basically it's saying they are the most likely chance to win just based on that stat alone. High X net rating, not as important. Well, the highest is not important. Net rating is tied for sixth. They're just consistent. They're consistent. And they're consistent sort of at the top end as well. So if you look at 1.5 times the buy, and higher, what are we looking at here? 19, 20, 28%. So 28% of games, 1.5. I'm gonna guess of
It's the
all the
highest.
slots,
It's the highest by
that's gonna be
quite a
the
bit.
highest. So that's gonna be the
Yep.
highest. So
Hmm.
not only does it have, I mean, it's got some losses below point 0.4, I'll give you that much, but it's got a good middling range of results, and it's got the good solid top end, not the explosive top end, but just an overall spread. So look, Grand Heist is what it's been all year, super consistent, and it's got a very weird stat line. So it's all 4 losses it got swept, which is just remarkable. So it lost to Silverback Mountain 3-0, Boom Boom 3-0, Silverback 3-0, Hammer of Vulcan 3-0. Uh Very weird. It's I don't know if that's just coincidental or something, but when it's lost, it's been just destroyed. But outside of that, yeah, look, very consistent. $4.50. I think it deserves to be the favorite. If you're somebody who likes favorites, I think at $4.50, it's a great bet because you are going to have a very, very reasonably soft matchup in round two. It doesn't matter which one. Doesn't matter who you get in round two. You're going to have a soft matchup. And even the rest of those slots, if you put Grand Heist against any of the ASC events, so I'll just run through them from top to bottom. Space Wars, you're going to want to be on Grand Heist. Sweet Bonanza, you're going to want to be on Grand Heist. Boom Boom Gold, you're going to want to be on Grand Heist. Rich Raptors, now I would say Rich Raptors v Grand Heist, that would be its biggest battle personally. And then Mental and Bloodsuckers, you're going to want to be on Grand Heist in all of them. Now you can't really say that in the lower division where Crystal Digger against maybe Sloth or Hip Hop Pop going to be a tight battle, or if Hammer of Vulcan meets just Hip Hop Pop, they're all tough matchups. Grand Heist, you're going to want to be on everything. Doesn't matter who they're up against before the championship. They are going to be a firm favorite, kind of like Baltimore, if you will, in the NFL for the third comparison today. Whoever Baltimore plays, they will be favorite. It might only be 3 points. It might be 7. It might be 8. But they are going to be favorite, and they are going to be the team that you have to beat to win it all. So $4.50, they are your favorites to win the whole event. I think they're a good bet. I think they're
Yeah.
a good bet at 450. Yep, that's season 1 boy wrapped up.
Absolutely. Get those bets in today. Like you said, the more you all bet and win and take from stake here in this market, the more we'll have the opportunity to bet on in season 2, which is obviously going to be makes more fun, more things you can gamble on.
If
Makes
they've got
things a
any
lot more
issues
fun.
with betting on the market on stake.com, you can just hit us up. We can try and help where we can because some people don't have accounts there or whatnot. We can try our best to help out with that where possible, of course. Or you can tune into stream as well. And we're going to be talking about it a lot over the next 3 or 4 days. We're going to be actually jamming it down people's throats, specifically because the event has been such a big success and we haven't really touched. I think we haven't touched the surface yet. There's so much more we're going to add to season 2, especially marketing wise as well. And to get head to head betting would be unbelievable because it already garners so much interest just off fantasy and tipping, which is the free competition we run every season on it. And if you throw in head to head betting and futures betting from week 1, that's crazy. That's going to be crazy. So
I
hope
agree.
fingers crossed we can get the interest we need.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, yeah, tune in, like, subscribe, do what you can. If you've got the funds and you can do so safely, then throw them on the ISL, pick your favorites, and We'd love to see you, and then of course watch the stream and see what happens. It's going to be win, lose, or draw. Even if you don't have any money on it, it's going to be a blast to see what happens and
Yeah, it's gonna be an awesome day.
how this epic season one shakes out. So, thanks for doing this all year, Systems. Appreciate it. I'll let you get off to stream, and everyone get out there and get those bets in if you can. And if you can't, make sure that you're watching the stream. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks for supporting season one, guys. See you next season.